Okay, guys, I am right now going to teach you one of the trickier, but also one of the cooler things we can do, which is write new files on the hard drive. It should be noted that you want to be careful when you stick file writing into a for loop. It is a bad idea. Well, okay, it's not a bad idea. It's just you can really quickly fill a hard drive with garbage if you're not careful. And then you'll have to write a script to go through and delete a bunch of files, which is doable, but a little hard. Okay, so here's the idea. I'm going to go through file input output in a couple of different ways, and I'm going to show you a couple of annoyances. I'm working in VS Code because all this stuff is a little bit easier on Repel. So some of these subtleties don't quite apply to Repel. They're just a little easier to work with there. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to go through three methods. First method is the first method, old school. It's clear, but it is a little error prone. So what that method relies on is if we look here at my little snippet of code I've got written here, I have output file is the result of calling the open function on this string that's test output.txt and with a W. Okay, so to comment that, what that means is that's going to be get a file read write stream. Okay, and basically what that means is the computer is going to be prepared to put information in and out of that file. And you can get a little more info on this if you hover. You'll get to see that doc string, right? So we can see that there's a lot of stuff. A lot of this is a bit tough to comprehend, but open a file and return a stream is maybe the first thing. So really what this does is it looks on the hard drive, right? And it finds a file and it opens that file as something in the RAM that can then be saved back into the file. Okay, so I'm gonna open these kind of in a default mode. I'm not gonna worry too much about all of this stuff, except for this part where it says mode is an optional string that specified the mode in which the file is open. R is reading mode, W is writing mode. Those are what I'm going for right now. Okay, so when you open a file in write mode, if it doesn't exist, it's gonna get created. Okay, and that's gonna be one of our small hangups in VS Code. So, all right, then so this is in write mode. And the reason I'm doing write mode is that it's easier to check that it's working, because if it doesn't exist, it'll create, right? Okay, so we're gonna make that file stream. And then our next thing is that we're gonna write something to the file. So I'm just writing a test string, right? You can write whatever the heck you want. Write lines is a good way to do things. Write just puts things in. If you call write again, it'll start writing immediately after that. If you want to do line breaks, you need to put carriage returns in. It's a little easier to use write lines. I'll let you guys read the docs on that because I really want to show off the three methods. So write a test string into the file. Okay, now if you forget this next part, it will not work because it's really not writing into the file, it's writing into the file stream. Maybe I'll just call it a stream, that's probably clearer. So it's writing onto the RAM, right? And then in order for the RAM to go to the hard drive, it needs to be saved. And so that's what this output file.close is doing, that's saving it. Right, so that's going to take the file that was there, it's going to overwrite it with the result of this stream. Should be noted it is a straight overwrite. If you open a file in write mode, whatever was in there before, once you save it, it's gone. If you want to open a file change what's in it and then save it again, you need to open it in read mode, save the contents somewhere, then open it in write mode, then save the new contents. There is a way to do this with a read plug. There's a mode that you can read and write, but I don't recommend it. I think at this stage, you want to be doing things really explicitly, just like the Zen and Python says to do. Okay, so those are my 3 stages, right? I create a stream, I do something to the stream, and then I close the stream. Those are always going to be my steps. So let me just run this, and I'll show you some of my confusion. Okay, so right now you will see I am, if I look at the file path for this thing, this is saved in a folder on my desktop. So let's see, that's not the right one. Okay, desktop. Shh, don't talk to me about my file system. It's awful. I know it. I'm aware of it. Thank you. File app. Okay, so you'll notice that there's a test.txt file in here because I was fiddling with this earlier, so I'm deleting that. It's gone. Okay. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to hit run. Okay, now it ran, no errors, but no file either. Okay, so now here's the tricksy business. VS Code's terminal doesn't always open where your file's saved. So if you look where the file's saved in C users manlove blah 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 garbage, right? It's saved on my desktop. If I look at where the terminal's open, that's this file path right here. Oh. No. That's I love how it told me that it would follow it and then it wouldn't. Okay, so if I go into PC, where's my root directory? If I go like this. No. Oh, come on. All right, fine, we'll go the long way. All right, so it's C, users, manlove, and then you'll notice there's a bunch of garbage. I'm really showing you guys my file system today. Test output.txt right there. Testing. Shit poop. So now's the part where we get to learn just a tiny little bit of terminal command. So this terminal is in the wrong spot. I want to move it to this other spot. Now, I am not a varsity terminal user, so but I can read. So here are the 3 commands you need to know. ls will list out all the things in a directory. Let's see, so I've got directories. Is desktop one of those? Let's see, so if I look at where this file's open, it's open in the OneDrive directory, right? So if I do cd, that's change directory. ls is list stuff. That's not right. I don't know what it stands for. All right, so I'm changing directory to OneDrive dash yccd, and then another slash and a desktop and a slash and a file IO. Okay, and now you'll notice that my directory is the same spot, and I can see the file that I'm working on in there if I hit ls. Okay, so now if I hit run here, and then if I hit ls again, I can see my test output file. And so let me close these guys and reopen that. Okay, so now I see my my test output file. So you just need to be sure that the terminal you're using is pointed at the folder that the file you're working in is contained in, because otherwise it'll create it in the directory that that the Python command was run in, and it gets a little confusing. Repel always runs in the directory it's pointed at, and so it's pretty easy. But VS Code is a little bit more complicated. If you're running things in a PowerShell window, so if you want to just check a Python script, one thing you can do is just double click the Python script. So if I delete that, I get my test output.txt. When you do that, you don't get quite as good at error processing, and frankly, I'm not even sure which version of Python that just used to run. I have, well, as you can see, 4 different versions of Python in here. I'm sure that it was one of the Python 3 versions that ran, but I don't know which one. My guess is that it actually ran in the Anaconda version, but whatever. Like, it actually doesn't matter that much here. Like, we're still doing pretty simple stuff, so it doesn't matter overly much which Python version I'm running. Another way you could do this is you can shift click and hit open PowerShell window here, and then this will give you that. So this terminal here is the exact same terminal that's at the bottom of VS Code. So you can list what's in here and then hit oops, what did I do? Python and file io.py, and that just ran. And if I want to check what Python version that is in fact my Anaconda Python version, because that's the most recently installed one. Just typing Python, by the way, tells you which version of Python you're running. Okay, so all that said, that is getting a file to output. So if I want to read it in, let me show you that. So I have here commented out read in lines. So I'm going to say the input file. Okay, so this is output code. This is input code. And so I'm creating a stream. So this is a read stream, right? So I'm creating a read stream. I'm calling it input file, and it's the result of opening the test output.txt file in read mode. And then we're going to print out the results, and then we're going to close the file stream. It's a little bit less important that you close read files. Like, it's not going to throw an error if you don't. If you do it a bunch, it'll eat up the RAM. It's not a good idea. Python's got a garbage collector. It goes around and collects unused variables and throws them away. But it's still shitty coding, I guess. Just close it when you're done with it. It's not that hard. Okay, so I see now if I run that, I get that printout of everything that was in the file that's testing. There's also a read lines command. You might look into that. It's a good idea. Okay, so I created a read stream. So let me just say that I print the contents of the file. And usually you're doing something a little bit more robust than just making a file and reading it back, right? Like, you're going to make a file, and then you're going to save the result of the user playing a game into it, and then you're going to read the file in, and then you're going to parse the inputs and use it to restart the game in the same position or something. Like, so it gets more complicated. I know. I'm well aware. Um, and third thing is just close the file, close the stream, really. I'm going to say the word file, and what I really mean is stream. That's very bad of me. I shouldn't do that. So this was all the first method. Okay, now the thing is, if you say open a file that doesn't actually exist, like test input's not a file that's in there, you'll get this error, file not found, no such file or directory. You will hate this error. It happens all the bloody time. It's often associated to needing the full file path or something. Sometimes it's associated to the slashies. So that when you're putting in a file path, Windows systems use one slash, Linux and Mac use the other slash. Gets real confusing. There's some ways around it. There's a library for file paths. That's a better idea, to use the library for file paths. Some people like hard code them with strings. It sucks. Don't do it. I mean, I do it all the time, but don't do it. Okay, so this has all been the first option. The second option is to do this exact same thing, except wrap everything in a try and a finally block. So what you do is something along the lines of, so you do something like try, and then in here you'd have file. Oops, file is probably a protected word. Maybe it's not. Let's just try. So you do something like file is open, and let me just copy this one that wasn't working, right? And let me change this back. To output. Okay, so test input.txt is a file that doesn't exist. And I'm trying to open it in read mode so it won't just be created. Do keep in mind, if you try to open a file that doesn't exist because you've mistyped the name or something, if you try to open it in write mode, it'll just make one. It'll be empty. It'll work just fine. Super confusing. Trust me, been there. All right, so I'm opening a file in read mode, and then I'm gonna like put in just a stand-in here, like do stuff to file. I keep saying file, it's still a string. Okay, so, and I guess I named it file. Maybe I should call it. Okay, so stream is my variable. I'll open it, that's the result of opening this file. Then I'll do stuff to that stream, like whatever you're gonna do to it, manipulate it. And then after you've tried, you make a finally, and that's, that'll be stream.close. And this way, if there's an error that occurs somewhere in trying to open the file or in manipulating the output or something, then regardless of whether an error is thrown, you'll close it. And that'll keep you from overloading the RAM with all these open files that an error prevented. You guys see that if you do the kind of first thing, right? You try to open this thing, then you try to do something to the guts of it. If that thing throws an error, then there's no opportunity to save it because the thing will crash, and that means that there's going to be hanging stuff in the RAM. This way, at least it'll close. And if you want a good example of something like this, although it's written in JavaScript, is the see if I have one here that's not very active. Sorry, I'm trying to find oh, what the hell. Here's the Discord for our class, right? So here's the um, here's the bot account. And so that thing is supposed to run all the time, right? I want that thing running up 24/7, 365 because people use it for stuff. Like the D&D kids use it to roll dice. And I don't want it to crash. So I can't, and it's running on some very small VM instance somewhere. So I don't want it to be overloaded. Well, if every time it tried to write in and out of its save files, and it does have save files, it saves conversations, it saves images, it saves the video. Like there's a little game you can play built into it. It saves all that crap into these JSON files, and it saves which servers it's logged into, which users it's interacted with, like all that stuff. Like it's got this huge save system. If any of that saving process is interrupted by an error, then the bot would crash. And the loss of an individual save file is not such a huge deal, but the crashing of the bot and having it be down for days before I realize that it's down would be kind of a problem because people might want to use it or I might need something from it. So this is one of those, like when you expect long-term uptime from your piece of code, you really want to use these try, find, leave, or try, except blocks. So in our case here, right, we're doing this, we're going to try to save things, and then we're going to close the file. Even if the saving didn't work, we're going to close the file stream. So that's our second option. And then there's this kind of third option. So the second option is clear, or maybe it's less clear, but handles errors. But you have to remember to make this whole like structure, right? So the third option, oops, that's not how you spell the word third. Which is the best option, but it is the least clear. Is to do this this thing where you use a with block. So you say with, and let's see if we get a hover over for with. Okay, I don't get a hover over with. So what a with block does is it basically wraps up the opening and closing all in one operation. So we're going to say with open, so with open this thing as stream, then we'll do stuff to the stream. And the with allows for all that error handling stuff to be built into it. It'll still raise exceptions, right? You're not silencing exceptions, but you're ensuring that it's saved automatically. So this'll do that auto save for you. I don't mind which of these methods you use. If you don't understand the with thing, that's totally okay. For right now, I don't really care if your guys' saving throws errors. If you're going to turn in a game or something that has a save game file, it should be error protected. But if it's just for an assignment of reading and writing to a file, I don't mind if it throws the occasional, if it's not protected from throwing errors. It shouldn't throw errors, but I don't mind if it's not protected. I just want you all to be aware that these options kind of exist, right? All right, so things, be careful what directory you're in. The directory that you're in is down here on your terminal if you're operating in VS Code. Yours should hopefully be less complex than mine. You can see that mine's actually kind of jacked because the stupid, I don't know why this is the case, but OneDrive is somehow configured to use spaces in their directory names, which is dumb. Don't do that. Don't know why. Also, these dashes, don't use those. Ever. 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 There's two different kinds of those stupid dashes. I think one's generated by Windows keyboards, the other one's generated by Mac keyboards. They cause no end of pain in the ass. Don't use these stupid things. Okay, so directories can be a pain in the butt. They're easier on Repel, so if you want to do things there, that's totally okay. Be careful if you're going to wrap something like this into a for loop. You can format these strings that you're using, so you can create a bunch of files at a time. Be careful. Don't fill your hard drive with files. Let's see, what else? There's always three operations. They're create the stream, do stuff to the stream, save the stream. In all three styles, all three of those steps are present. It's just that with the with, you don't have to worry about calling the save step explicitly. So that's a nice, that's nice. But you should be prepared to wonder whether things have closed. All right, that's it for tonight.